again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Brian Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Brian Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latex gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
You guys know what to do, just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm Daniel, and again, I'm back at home. I'm no longer in the Airbnb. For those that have been watching and tuning in here recently, I was in an Airbnb for the last week and a half or so. Lightning had struck very close or near my house and created a lightning surge. And long story short, I had to be displaced from my home for a little bit of time, and that caused a little bit of a ruckus with the audio. But I'm back home. The audio sounds good. If it's coming in clear, let me know, guys. Hit the like button for doing so. Tonight we have a great show for you guys. I'm going to bring back a guest we had not too long ago. One of the best shows that we've had. Very intelligent mind. I think this guy can see some things that are in the details are amazing that this guy can see. And his name is Monks, and his channel is called Monks Intrigue. Make sure you go like and subscribe there. We're going to bring him on. We're going to talk about the Nancy Guthrie abduction and some of the newest findings in the plea agreement. And so without further ado, let's bring in our special guest. What's going on, Monks? I like the shades, buddy. How's it going?
Hey, it's Drunk Monks. I saw some people in the chat say that, so I grabbed my shades, and I think I fit the vibe here.
There you go.
But I can't do it. I can't steal your personality. That's just. Anyways, I just want to say hi to everybody, and glad to be on your show again, Daniel. Yeah, I said a lot of kind words about you in my last video, and
I appreciate that. Thank you, my man. Thank you. Yes, I've spoke glowingly about yours as well, and you know, I guess you know the way you look at things is next level, my man, and you really dig deep into some stuff, and I think that it makes for great content for both of us to bounce some ideas back and forth. And one of the things that have recently happened was the Derek Kayea. Do you know how to pronounce his last name? I think I've heard it a couple of.
I heard Kayea. I heard Chayea, but of course that could have been something I threw in there because of Sione. Sione is actually Chione. So yeah, but I've been told that I'm doing it all wrong no matter what I say. So we'll just say Kale. Well, maybe we could go back to just what we've known him as.
Right. I mean, it can't be worse. I wasn't familiar with the Guthrie family or Savannah before any of this. And sometimes when I read things, I get a couple of things backwards. And one of the things I got backwards was her name. And I was calling her the Guthrie family. So it can't be worse than that.
That's forgivable. You know, I have a story I'll share with you about how this is embarrassing in a way. Okay, so I was playing a pickup game of basketball, and I hadn't played in a while, so I came back, and one of the fellas looked at me and said, "How have you been?" For the life of me, I had no idea what he was saying. I go, "What?" He goes, "How have you been?" I could not understand him. I don't know what kind of dyslexia that is, but I could not understand the simplest question that he was asking me until maybe the third or fourth try. And I was like, wow, am I just mental? What was that? It was like, yeah, just want to share that because of your girthy.
Oh man, I did that for like 2 shows, and then people were telling me they were spelling it out in the live chat like slow, and I'm like, what are y'all doing? I'm saying it right. And then I listened to somebody else say it, and I was like, oh, So that's what that's where the mistake.
You know what? That's forgivable because Guthrie isn't a common name. I don't think she's the only one with that name that I heard. But how have you been is egregious. So
It definitely is. I mean, Rubik's reminds me of a conspiracy I started that went nationwide. So in the Brian Koberger case, I had WSU mom Kim on, and long story short, I had a friend of mine named Pam, who was also a client of mine with my business. They had messaged me during my interview with her, and I kind of looked over, then looked back, and I accidentally called her Pam, and so everybody was like, "Oh, her real name is Pam. Her real name is Pam." And good times, good times.
you doxed her, yeah, in some way.
In some way. Well, people started thinking that it went from Pam to that this was this person here in Texas to this person was somehow related to me to this person was then my wife. I mean, the rumors went crazy. It was insane. It was insane. But the plea here, so we got the plea deal, all 12 pages, and I went through it last time a little bit, but I went through it kind of quick because I got it right before my show, and I'll be honest with you guys, I still haven't gone through it in a high detail that I want to, but there are some things that do stick out. So first is the elements of the offense. The elements of the offenses which the defendant is pleading guilty are that in an interstate or foreign commerce made a telephone call utilizing a telephone communications device, whether or not the conversation or communication ensued, without disclosing defendant's identity with the intent to abuse, threaten, or harass any specific persons. Now, one of the things that I noticed is, well, first and foremost, it says on here that international made it interstate or foreign commerce. And then I also noticed an immigration consequence. The defendant recognizes that the pleading guilty may have consequences with respect to the defendant's immigration status if the defendant is recently naturalized U.S. citizen or not a citizen of the United States. Under federal law, broad range crimes are removable offenses, including offenses to which the defendant is pleading guilty. Although there may be exceptions, the defendant understands that the defendant's plea of guilt and conviction for this offense make a practically inevitable and virtually certain that the defendant will be removed or deported from the United States. And when I scroll away,
I would wonder though, with that, I guess the stipulation they just put there, if that's in all of these as filler for the plea agreements or whatnot, that immigration part. But it would also be very interesting if it's just for, Kalela.
It would be. It would be. But at the very bottom, it does say that I've read this agreement and it has been read to me in Spanish. And I have carefully reviewed every part of it with my attorney. I don't know much about Kalea. I know you've done some research on him. Was his music Spanish? Did it seem like he wasn't an English speaker?
Well, it doesn't sound like English, but I'm pretty sure it is English. If you had the opportunity to listen to his music, it's the only way I could describe it is very low effort, kind of mumbling, so to speak. I mean, I've tried to listen and decipher what he is saying, but you guys don't have to. But in terms of his origins that I could find, he used to live in Mexico. So him being read this in Spanish actually kind of makes sense. Now, I looked up what Kalela originates from as a surname, right? The two L's is interesting, right? Two double L's. And it gave me that it does have Italian origins, and they gave me a few cities. I still have it here. Maybe I'll pull it up as we're talking about him. Campania, Calabria. Maybe I shouldn't try the accent, but northern Italy and Apulia. Okay, those are where the cities in Italy that they could possibly originate from. So we could say we don't know that if he's from Italy, right? Tommaso's from Italy, but we don't know if Kalela is. He could just have an Italian dad and possibly a Mexican mom because he seems to have used to live in Mexico. The funny thing is, I did the exact same research recently on Kalela because of this whole change of plea hearing, and all that stuff's been wiped. Now, I have to go into another hard drive because I have images of him in Mexico with whom I think is his partner, a woman, but he does also have a daughter. And this is all in Mexico. And he used to perform the same type of music in Mexico. So he does have a tie to Mexico in that way. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder if he also made the communications in Mexico, thinking that that would protect him. Because the very very first part, and again, it could be boilerplate where it's just jargon that's in every single deal, right? And so it says the defendant in interstate or foreign commerce, which the interstate part would be the California connection, but the foreign commerce part, I wonder if he had made any communication while in Mexico.
And did they ever mention that IP thing for the first two?
Let's see. Let's go down to that part real quick.
Because if they have the IP and it's the same IP, I think we mentioned that before. And if it was in Mexico, they would know, I assume, unless it's a VPN.
Yeah, I don't see. I think that, let's see. It says here, law enforcement agents determined that the 0552 number was associated with a voice over internet protocol, VoIP text and call application that allows users to obtain another phone number for their mobile device separate from the phone assigned to them. The number was registered to the following email address, derekkalela@gmail.com.
Is that considered doxing if you show that? I mean, it's a really silly email, but that is his email unless he's giving it up, right?
That's true.
Leading that.
And they do have an IP address there's an IP address there.
They do.
And an approximate time in which the messages and the calls went through, which was at 6:02 p.m. on February 4th.
Mm-hmm. They don't give us the what time zone of 6 p.m.
Correct. They do not.
Yeah. But I've seen this part, not this plea agreement. I haven't seen this plea agreement. If anybody knows, I emailed Daniel to get this plea agreement to me, but the man was asleep.
This is true.
Yes, he's been very tired. He's been busy. So perfectly understandable. I mean, we're going through it now. So this is all new to me, except that part. That part, I saw it, but it was redacted, like the IP address, his email. I seen the redacted version. So this is actually kind of cool to see everything.
And I think there's a mistake here as well. So it says here, on or about February 4, 2026, shortly after the February 2nd, 2026 video was published. I don't recall a video being published on February 2nd. And the video that they're referring to that was published is on February 4th. So it says here, on February 4, 2026, NG's family published a video asking for Nancy Guthrie's kidnappers to contact them about their mother. I know there's been some speculation that maybe perhaps that recording or that video was recorded on the 2nd after the ransom note was found.
Makes a lot of sense.
But I mean, and it could have been recorded and just not published until the 4th. Mm-hmm. But this one says the video was published on the 2nd. So I think there could be just a mistake here, and it's meant to have been the 4th. On or about February 4th, shortly after the February 4th video, AG, the daughter of Nancy Guthrie, and TC, which I'm assuming is Tommaso and Annie, each received a text message on their phone numbers. And so I think we just have to go back and see what time it was on the 4th when they dropped that video. I'm assuming it is probably shortly before 6:02 p.m. Mm-hmm. Based on what this says here. Does that make sense to you as well?
Yeah.
And so what it sounds like they're doing here is they're saying that Galella was following the case, saw on February 2nd that there was a ransom demand via TMZ, etc., during media outlets. And then on February 4th, he saw the video published by the family and then decided to take advantage of the situation.
So basically, he was really on this case.
I mean, I would.
That's what he's being portrayed as right now, is like, I saw this, I saw that. He even knew when the first ransom note came out. I mean, I didn't even know when the first ransom note came out. So
Right.
he was real time following this case. It'd be interesting to see what news channel he was following, to stay so up to date with something like this.
That's a good
Interesting,
point.
right? Especially if he's an addict, possibly.
That's a good point. I will say though,
Maybe it was Adderall, right? They make you hyper focus.
they make you focus.
Homework, right? Yeah.
Now, there is something interesting in here that I just saw when I was pulling it up, and it is the recommendation of, no, not that one, stipulations regarding sentencing. It says the defendant agrees to not seek any so it says stipulations regarding sentencing pursuant to blah, 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 blah. The defendant agrees not to seek any adjustments in Chapter 2, 3, or 4 in sentencing guidelines or any departures from the sentencing guidelines. The defendant acknowledges that the defendant seeks any such adjustment or departure the government may withdraw from the plea. Notwithstanding this agreement, the parties agree that the total offenses level determined by Chapters 2 and 3 shall decrease by 2 levels if the defendant meets all the criteria for certain 0-point offenders pursuant to USSG 4C1. And it goes on to the recommendation of acceptance of responsibility. If the defendant makes a full and complete disclosure to the U.S. Probation Office of the circumstances surrounding the defendant's commission of the offense, and if the defendant demonstrates an acceptance of responsibility for this offense up to and including the time of sentencing, the United States will recommend a 2-level reduction in the application guideline sentencing offense level pursuant to USSG.
A 2-level reduction. Would you know what that means?
I do not. I'd have to get with my. What do you think it means?
I think it means that, well, he's being charged with 2 counts of harassment, and each charge comes with the 5 years probation. Now, you could do that back to back or concurrent, from my understanding. So I think the 2-level reduction is having it be concurrent, because that's exactly what it is right now. 5 years probation, right? Served concurrently as long as he goes to rehab. Possible. Maybe that's what it means.
It could be. I think it definitely could be that's the 2-level reduction. That plus the concurrently, and then I think maybe perhaps reducing it from jail time to probation. So the concurrent and the probation part, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
That is very light.
It is. I assume. I've never arrested anybody for this, and I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the many other cases where somebody has gotten arrested for something like this. But there are some weird situations where people get light sentences. This one, I would have thought would have carried a heavier punch, just because according to Nanos, there's been 3 arrests, and so a lot of people are doing this. You might want to make send a message so that they stop, don't you think?
Yeah, I did a video on just that. I mean, the message they're sending right now, if the sentence really is 5 years probation, slap on the wrist is, have at it. Go ahead. You'll be out in no time to try again, right? And worst case scenario, 5 years probation. I mean,
the other people we're not even hearing about, which I'm assuming means that they're probably getting something lighter, don't you think?
Yeah, and maybe they just I mean, how much weight do we put into what Nano says? I mean, it could be just really some low-level guy asking for money, right? So
It could be. Now, what this kind of also reads, though, is that they're not asking for information from him. That in order to recuperate this, is that he must accept responsibility for the offense.
you know, now that you've read it again and it's echoing in my head, that is, I mean, if they have him dead to rights, I mean, what is he going to do? Of course,
Right.
of course, you're just going to accept it. I mean, I'm sure the whole entire world felt that he was going to get the book thrown at him as an example to this entire case. Hey, don't do what this guy did. He's an idiot. But now we have this light sentence going on. So it makes you feel like, shouldn't he give them something, right? We talked about this. Actually, me and you talked about this, that he may give up something. And like you said, they will go search that something to make sure that it's good enough for them to reduce this sentence. And here we are, right? We have that light sentence scenario. So do we still believe that he gave something up, and do we really believe he's in rehab right now? So
I mean, I wouldn't know, you know, as far as if he's like in witness protection for giving up some information. I don't know, you know, obviously they wouldn't put out, oh, well, this guy talked. So,
yeah, they're not going to do that.
you know, they're not going to do that. The only thing is, like, the information would have had to have been concrete, and I think there would have been some movement, don't you think?
Yeah. If it's the FBI, which it is because it's interstate,
Correct.
Yeah, they move in the shadows. They don't say anything. So
They don't. They really don't. And it's hard to get things out of them as well. But you know, what this does say, you know, well, I mean, I get, you know, the part where he may have talked about something and that's why he got a lighter sentence. But what if there wasn't anything to talk about, and that the only thing he could do is just accept it? You know what I mean? What do you think about that?
yeah, I mean, it's plausible.
You know what I mean? Like what if this was just as simple as this guy was, you know, caught his attention. He saw the plea from the kidnappers, looked up this guy's. I mean, it's pretty quick. It's pretty quick succession.
They scooped him up really fast.
Yeah, I mean,
makes you feel, and you know, just like his name at gmail.com, it almost feels like he wanted to get caught, right? I mean, unless he is really just that boneheaded. I mean, drugs will make you do crazy things, right?
mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
for a man that can't think through the fact that he's using his email to create a voice over IP that he can't get tracked this way, but sophisticated enough to try to pull off, what is this? Finding Tommaso and Annie's phone number over the internet. Two characters at the time, they scooped him up on the 4th, right? So he must have been doing all this stuff. What was it, the 2nd or 3rd? So,
well, I think they got him the 5th, didn't they? Because the 4th is when he sent out the messages.
Okay, so the 4th, and they scooped him up on the 5th.
Yeah, that was pretty quick.
I don't know how relevant Annie and Tommaso were at the time for him to pinpoint them as the people to call, unless they were just the you know, the low-hanging fruit that he could, you know, find their number. I mean, Annie had that, was it the jewelry business, which I think is still there, right? Didn't Chris Madonna visit that area?
That's correct.
He did, right? So I guess it still exists. I guess she still sells jewelry out of there. But
is her phone number associated like on that?
I would assume so. I mean, not her personal number, but who knows how she runs her business. Maybe she did put her cell phone as a business contact. But at the same time, then where did you get Tommaso's phone number? Right? Is that as quick as I mean, he did teach at Basis Oro Valley, which is a charter school, a very small school. And do they just hand out the teacher's information like that? I believe they do not. You know, I don't think they even put an email. They give the school email if you want to contact these teachers. So their privacy is respected. So how do you get Tommaso's number? How do you even think of Tommaso? Because he is just the husband. And you wouldn't even know he's her husband because he's Tommaso Cioni and Annie still goes by Guthrie. So, I mean, he must have did some sleuthing to figure that out. But why does he feel the need to text two people when you have Savannah Guthrie's sister? You got her phone number. She's the only one you need to talk to if you actually want some money. Okay. Savannah is the rich one. Right? If you're going to try to get rich off this caper, you are not going after the sister. So I don't understand the connection with Tommaso in that aspect, So,
you make some solid points there. When I look at the document, it says Kalea stated that he pulled the family information from a website. So I'm assuming that it was on the same website, Tommaso and Annie's. I guess we'd have to figure out if there is a website that has both of their information on there like that.
I feel it's possible because I don't know. I don't live on the dark web. I don't need any information from there. So who knows how they come about this kind of information. So
because I know you can pay for stuff like that, but this doesn't seem like the guy that's paying for things.
Yeah, this is the guy that is being charged with fraud for unemployment for 10K. So he's going to jail for that.
Yeah.
So he will be in jail, guys. So
yeah, it's pretty crazy. A couple of things though that stuck out to me. First thing was that Nancy Guthrie was last seen inside of her residence in Tucson. So last seen inside of the residence tells me that whoever dropped her off, whether it was just Tommaso or Tommaso and Annie, I'm not sure if it was both or just one, probably walked her into the home. Don't you, would you come to the same conclusion there?
Yeah, I mean, if we want to follow that timeline again, me personally, I love going over the timeline, no matter how many times I hear it. Even if I hear someone talk about the timeline again, I perk up and I listen again because there is minute details that certain people think about, and they share it. And, I love that aspect of the community, the true crime community. There's plenty of things we can't think about, like little stuff. Like there was somebody who told me that the railing on her front walkway was purchased at Amazon, and I looked it up, and there is that railing that you could purchase on Amazon. Now, it might not mean anything, but it could mean something, right? So, in terms of family, I don't know why they just can't be clear with that. I'm pretty sure most of us just don't understand why they can't just give us a name. If the family is completely innocent, they have nothing to do with this, their timeline is only helpful. It's not damning. Okay, so why can't we know who drove her home? So I guess Tommaso driving her home was something that Nanos let slip early on, and he quickly changed it to family just to mask it because he doesn't want any heat on Tommaso for some reason. So once Tommaso drives her home, 2 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at that driveway. How does he go in? If he's just going in and backing out, I assume that's a natural way. It's actually a tricky way in the dark to back out of Nancy's driveway like that, but it's kind of narrow and you can't really do a complete U-turn, it looks like, unless you drive into Nancy's garage and then back out. I guess I could see it that way. But if you drive into Nancy's garage and then back out, that's wasting time, right? We have a 2-minute time frame to fill. So in, out, and then Nancy gets out of the car. Because if you look at her garage, her blue Subaru is already in there. So with another second vehicle in there, I don't think Nancy's getting out very easily, if at all. If two vehicles are in there, that door is not opening very wide for a woman that can't physically walk very well.
Right.
So he's coming back out. What do we lose? 20 seconds? 30 seconds, maybe? So now you got a minute and a half only if that was the case. So if Tommaso is walking Nancy into the house, how does that look? Does he stop the car? I assume the garage is already open. That's another thing. Is he walking over to Nancy's door because he's a gentleman and a good son-in-law, opening it up, helping her out, and then opening the garage? Then I could probably see 2 minutes if that's the case. But if the garage is already open, which I assume they did, because why not? If you just have like the button, it's a little harder to see 2 minutes.
Well,
So
I
it
mean,
depends on,
the
yeah.
garage door opens, right? So, and it's a 2 minutes between the time that it opens and it closes. You know, she's got some mobility issues. It might be, you know, as it might take him a little bit longer to get her out of the car.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So that might add some time on there. And then, you know, maybe they had a small, you know, goodbye. You know, whether it's like, do you need anything? Do you need anything else? No, 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 blah, blah, blah. All righty. Well, you know, I'm going to take off. It was good seeing you, yada, yada, yada. And so instead of just like,
More
all right,
time.
off, hand off, turn around and walk out, maybe there was a small, like, you know, good night type of thing.
Yeah. And that's to say that she went in through the garage. So
Right.
I'm hearing conflicting things because Pima County has not been clear on how they got the time for that garage. Unless it's a smart garage, then that's easy. But is that just from family that the garage opened at 48 and closed at 50? I'm not sure we were actually clear on that also, which is aggravating. They gave us these little bits of information, and when they should know we want these things expanded upon, even just a little bit. I know we're just the public, but
No, I agree with you completely. You know, I that's one of my biggest pet peeves in most criminal cases is that law enforcement is not transparent enough. And that's with most cases. You know, in the Brian Koberger case, that's one that I covered extensively. A lot of people were looking at Jack Decor, the boyfriend of one of the victim's family members. And in the end, he was cleared by law enforcement, but nobody would tell anybody why. You know, there'd be a lot of information that would be coming out. There would be, um, you know, these stories that were breaking about him. Oh, well, he lived this close to the house. Oh, well, phone calls went to him multiple times throughout the night. Oh, then we find out that he was in the bar with them that night that the murders happened. And so many things just started to pile up against him that law enforcement had to say something, and all they would say is, you know, he's not considered a suspect. He's been cleared. And that was one of the things that myself, the victim's family members that believed that he was innocent, that knew he was innocent, wanted more of. And that's one of the things that I don't understand why law enforcement doesn't do. It's not like, you know, in the Brian Koberger case, were they going to use, you know, Jack Decor? I mean, maybe the defense was, but not the prosecution. And him being cleared has nothing to do with the case against Brian Koberger. So I 100% agree with you. I wish law enforcement was more open about those things because it's, you know, one, it gives an appearance of guilt, and it also gives an appearance of that there could be something there without disclosing, you know, because they don't disclose anything. So I'm with you, man. I'm frustrated about that
that's
as
an
well.
interesting story to bring up because you could say that actually kind of mimics what's happening with Tommaso. I mean, they're not blind to the fact that Ashley Banfield mentioning him as the person of interest, if not the prime suspect in the beginning.
That's true.
All eyes were on him, so he's felt the heat. Is that why Nanos came out to say that all family and spouses were cleared? It's possible.
It is. Now, I wouldn't think that they would do that just because people were suspicious of somebody. They would have to actually, go through the process of clearing them to make a statement like that. Now, Nanos was very reluctant to make a statement like that in the beginning. He was like, nobody's cleared until the case is solved, et cetera, et cetera. And then all of a sudden he changed his tune and said that the family and such were cleared. But yeah, I wouldn't think that they would say that about someone they suspected. Now, I do strongly suspect that Ashley Banfield's reporting early on was accurate, that they did suspect Tommaso.
How could they not? Right, we can say it that way.
I agree. But just like anything else, law enforcement, especially early on, they don't got all the information right away. And so they can be wrong too. That's why you do the investigation, right? So you get the evidence, you follow it up, see which way it leads, etc. But I 100% believe that Tommaso was a suspect early on. He was the last person to see her. He dropped her off. The person is about the same height and weight as him. And as you brought up, there's possible, financial motivations here. And so, yeah, I would have looked right at him right out the gate too.
Yeah, he's a compelling character, I would say. I mean,
and Lewis, I'm not sure which email you're referring to. I got a super chat real quick. Can you please check out the email I sent to you for you and Monks, please? Thank you very much. Love you guys. Thank you very much too as well. I looked, I didn't see any email, but there are some cameras here as well that I'm just looking at. You have one here, you have one here. I'm assuming there's a pretty significant security system here for all the cameras. So I'm assuming that's why they know the garage door opening as well.
Yeah, if they could access the camera, and I think we touched on this last time, if that camera is even still alive at the time, it was winter, maybe there was some overcast days. Once that's dead, it's dead. You don't recharge a dead camera. You got to go there with a brick and recharge it with an alternate source. So I can't imagine Nancy doing that, by herself. So she's gonna have to have some help to do that.
Yeah.
So maybe because they've never talked about that camera, it's possible those cameras and the other one on the casita, which the FBI took, were actually just dead for a while. But they did say that they got some thumbnails out of that camera over the casita that they took, and they said it just didn't mean anything, or they're just not sharing with us. I just remember that right now. They did say that they got something, but that was it. They didn't share anything.
I had wondered if the timeline was backwards as far as the detection of a person and then the disconnection of the phone or the camera, because it should be backwards. There should be a detection and then the disconnection. Yeah. But I was reminded that law enforcement had said that on the camera that didn't get video, but did detect somebody walking, did collect footage before and after the abduction, that they saw the movements of people before and then the movements of people in the morning when law enforcement arrived, family arrived, etc. So I'm a little bit conflicted on that, on whether or not there is a second camera that did capture something. I'm starting to kind of lean back towards that there may have been at 212 something outside. What are your thoughts about that, and what does that tell you?
That there possibly is detection.
Yeah.
At 212. I mean, Nano said it could have been a coyote. It could have been a javelina. I think in terms of the cameras, I mean, we've only seen the doorbell camera work. I would also tend to believe that was also the detection, is everything is coming from the doorbell camera.
Mhm.
The only other camera that I would find interesting is the one inside the house, because Nano said that there is one inside the house and we're looking over that. That camera can't be dead. That's hardwired, right? It's plugged into the wall. So there's footage inside that house, whether it shows, the crotch holster guy in there or not, but they'll at least get Nancy in her everyday, life or whatnot with that camera. So they have more footage. I'm pretty positive about that. So
I think so too. I mean, one, we know that there's more than likely more footage because, and I don't understand why they would do this, but maybe they just couldn't recover it. But when he goes to pick up the plants in the front, it cuts from that to him putting the plants on to the doorbell camera. We don't see him walking back towards the camera.
yeah,
And
I think I get why that happens, and that's a Nest thing. They
Really?
only record 30-second segments, and then they would snap a screenshot, right? A thumbnail for the alert. And I think that's why it's not a continuous thing. Like my camera does the exact same thing. It's a different model, but it does the exact same thing. I wish it would record longer, but because of I don't know, the way it records, that's by default. So that could answer that question. I don't think the FBI is hiding any sliver of his walking to the door. I don't see why they would. That's just the way the camera works, I believe.
and thank you, Luis. I did get your I did get your email. And I'll bring this up here in a little bit as well. All righty. So let's see. Let's pull this back up here. Now, it did say that she had mobility issues and likely precluded her from walking long distances unassisted. Now, when it comes to her movement and her mobility issues, I mean, she was active, in my opinion. She was supposed to be, I mean, she went to her daughter's house via Uber and got back. The next day, she was supposed to go to a friend's church service. I don't know if that was going to be by Uber or if that would have been by, her driving herself out there. She did have a vehicle with her. I don't know how much driving she did. So, I mean, this kind of leads me to believe that she may have not have been as, that she could have been more mobile than we get an impression of. What do you think?
I know who knows. Pima County knows. I mean, they took her car, right? They're looking at the telematics. They're looking at the GPS. Where has this car been? I mean, if it's been visiting the supermarket, been visiting her friends, they know all that. So they know how active she possibly is. And maybe there is an eyebrow raised that she took an Uber for a 4-mile drive. Now, maybe because it's so dark, her eyes aren't what they used to be, that she doesn't like to drive in the dark before. Maybe she's had a run-in with or a possible close call to an accident and she just never wanted to drive at night again. I mean, that's possible. My dad actually went through the exact same thing. He almost hit our neighbor and he just said, I'm not driving at night anymore, and made my mom drive the rest of the time. So I get that in that aspect. So it's hard to say, and I think it's okay for us to wonder why things like that aren't clarified for us, if not by the family. I mean, maybe their mouthpiece can help us out, which is Sheriff Nanos. I mean, just give us things that don't matter. Even it's these little things that we talk about, you can clarify for us in some manner. I can't imagine he doesn't watch all these videos. I mean, it doesn't show him in a glowing light or anything. Maybe he does stay away from him. But if it's information that doesn't interfere with the case, share a little more. I think they're parceling it out like so little, right? I mean, we've just barely got what the ransom note said, the first two that they tend to believe is real. So what will they share with us next? Hopefully it's just the simple route that Tommaso took to get to Nancy's house. I want to know that. Why can't we know that? They're knocking on doors. They're asking a 4-mile radius of people to check their cameras. Why not just give Tommaso's route and someone will say, hey, man, I live on that route. Let me go ahead and check if we see any suspicious cars. Because as of now, whatever car Tommaso was driving that night is a phantom car. There's no sign of it. There's multiple phantom cars that night because we assumed the porch guy had to make his great escape. If he had, partners or whatnot, they had to make their great escape. Nothing. In 2026, where cameras are everywhere, we have 2 phantom cars. So that part is a mystery that I feel at least the FBI knows.
I hope so. The only part about them not, I'm hoping they have a picture of the car. It's just, I don't understand why they wouldn't release that, if they did, if there was a suspect vehicle. The Brian Koberger case, and I bring that one up a lot because that was the one that I was most close with. They put out a bolo on December 9th, 7th, something like that, of a white Elantra with a stock photo of the vehicle. Brian Koberger freaked out. He panicked. He was supposed to fly back home to Washington or to Pennsylvania. Instead, he got into an argument with his professor that led to his firing, and he manipulated the situation so that his father would then fly instead down to Washington so they could drive the vehicle out of Washington back across the country. And
as
he made
suspicious as can be, right?
As suspicious as can be. Many mistakes throughout this entire process. If they put out a video like that, or a footage, or even a stock photo of a vehicle, you're going to get a response from somebody.
That's an awesome point. I like that point because if they released a footage of a Honda CRV 2010 rolling around at 2 a.m., heads will be rolling. Maybe it's too damning because the porch guy video released by the FBI is tough. Even though we get to see this guy moving around, we get to see how he walks, what his mannerisms are, it's still pretty tough because of the getup that he has on. So, but a car, right, is a little harder to disguise. I don't know how you're putting a beanie on a car to make it look different, right? So, yeah, that might be too on the nose for them to release. I feel, because I don't believe in phantom cars in 2026. I believe everybody's getting recorded, right? Big Brother is watching, and Big Brother is just not saying anything at the moment.
I agree. I mean, it's frustrating and it's weird. That's why I wondered if this guy had some sort of jammer of some sort. I know there's people that were claiming that their footage or their Wi-Fi may have been affected. I had Alex on from Criminal Network, and he did some boots on the ground stuff out there and talked to some folks in the area. And he said that the neighbors that he spoke to didn't have any Wi-Fi issues at night, but that doesn't mean that he spoke to everybody either. Yeah. But, he also mentioned that there was one guy that did have cameras, but that the footage, I guess, by the time that they showed up, wasn't available anymore or something to that nature. And
that didn't talk to the very adjacent neighbor.
I don't recall if one of them was one of them.
One that
had all the cameras, that had law enforcement going back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may have been him. And that there was nothing on his cameras.
Yeah, there's nothing on his cameras. It's supposed to have been down. I mean, they did the local news did an interview with them, and they said, yeah, their cameras were down 100%. So unless they're lying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's weird. I mean, and that's what kind of tells me that this guy might have, had a jammer or something that masked his vehicle. Because
I'm aboard with the jammer.
And with that route that has come out, I wondered if that route is available because of camera systems that went down. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you can follow that tells you at least a direction to travel up to a certain point.
That is true. That's a great point as well. There seems like like I'm saying, it's 2026. It's hard to be a ghost. Even if you're trying to be a ghost with a jammer, you follow all the dead cameras along the way too. So,
I mean,
What a puzzling case. I think that's why so many people are just fascinated with this. So
I agree. I agree. In fact, I found all the cameras that I could possibly find. I went through that route that Tommaso had put on there, um, and or Annie and Tommaso that they had put. Let me find Google Earth real quick because I have it on my Google Earth. But for some reason,
I'm pretty familiar with the Catalina foothills now, just by following these strange routes.
yeah, no, I hear you. And there was some though that were hardwired in that would not have been affected by a by a jammer because they were Wi-Fi'd in. Let's
Okay,
see.
yeah, plugged right in.
Yeah, so all the green spots here. This is the route that, and it's kind of hard to see, but that's a camera. There's a camera there. There's a camera there. There was one. Well, the cameras here for the
gas station.
the gas station. Those would have picked up somebody driving here.
Definitely.
Now there is a route to get around it that I had found. If you turned up this direction,
What are those, warehouses or are those homes,
this right here, I think those are like apartments.
apartments?
Yeah, which should have some sort of. Oh, I think it's right here. If you turn off this direction here, you can just drive all the way around. Yeah, and get around it. But you would have to
Dead
be.
spot. Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, you'd have to be very familiar with this area. But even at that, like there's cameras here and here that are like business cameras that I don't think you're going to get away from.
Hmm. Now, before you carry on, what do you think Annie was showing here? Because I feel like there's been debate about that. But
Well,
what is Annie trying to show if this is her route?
I mean, to me, it's showing somebody trying to get to Phoenix without getting through cameras or going through big highways.
It is very odd. There is a part of me, because for this map to make sense, and if it came from Annie, Annie was trying to pinpoint places that Nancy would have gone for the public. Because Basha's right there, the final end, that's a pharmacy. So it's a supermarket pharmacy.
Yeah.
So meds, right? And of course, Annie's going to pick up meds from the closest spot because she is the caretaker. So that is the closest pharmacy from her house. So I assume that's what she's trying to show here, because if this is a getaway route, yeah, it looks really suspicious. Why are you taking like these weird routes instead of just going straight, right? You take a detour for some reason. So, because there's a hair salon in there as well. And of course, there's Green Toes nail
right
salon,
here.
and then there's a hair place. It feels like those are places she was trying to pinpoint Nancy's, where she would hang out.
There was also some other interesting points, like this address here.
I think that's where the gathering was. I would assume that's where the church gathering was that expected Nancy that day. And that's what I think Annie was trying to pinpoint. Even though she didn't label it for some reason.
Right. That's an interesting point. I didn't think about it that way. When I looked at this, because when I put in like the straight route from Nancy's house to Botcha's, you have to put in extra stuff so that it makes this route. So like if you put in a stop here, then it'll make it go this way.
Yeah. I mean, those lines aren't controlled by Annie when she made it. Those lines are controlled by Google. If you go here, we're going to make these lines go here. So, I mean, if she took a pen out and just like print out and drew it, and she might draw it a little differently. She might even label what she's trying to show. So she was using Google Maps in a screenshot. So if she's not tech savvy, then that's what we get. We get this strange map with no identification of what we're looking at. So,
I think it would be, it's too broad for me, but maybe perhaps she's pointing out these places to see if anybody else was there, see if they can pull up their footage to see if they see Nancy, see if anybody's following her.
That as well. Yeah, that as well. And
You
I
know,
mean, remember early on, Daniel, this was a walk away. Now, how it ever was viewed as a walk away, no one can convince me is not puzzling. Because if A and T are in the house, I don't care how you get in the house. The moment you are in the house, you will at least see those propped open doors. And Nancy is nowhere to be found. Why
yeah,
would she prop open the doors to walk away? Now, if you were just to stay just a couple more minutes, I think you're gonna find blood on the porch. I remember I did this scenario on my channel where I gave grace. I let them stay there for 30 minutes. What are you doing in those 30 minutes? You have by now must realize your mom is not a walk away. The doorbell camera is missing.
right.
So
Right. And
so
I'm not sure they
right?
caught the doorbell camera missing now. I know that there was a guy who had spoken to maybe Brian Enton and another person that spoke also, and they clarified that some of the information that they had believed that, and I guess this came from Savannah as well, was that she left on her, not necessarily on her own accord, but that the doors were propped open, maybe perhaps because she contacted. Oh, we got a
Another
uh,
storm.
yeah, another storm coming in.
I'm sorry, Daniel.
That
Gotta
scared
go
the
back to
shit
that
out of me.
PMB.
That man, I lost my train of thought there. That the back doors may have been propped open because they thought maybe she had a medical emergency,
Mhm.
contacted, you know, EMS, and EMS propped open the doors to get her in and out.
Plausible, but I'll say this. Um, in trying to understand Savannah's timeline, she said that she had a fun night with Carson Daly and his family.
Mhm.
So the key word there is night. And this is something I reiterated or I mentioned in my previous video for anyone that's already heard it. So night in New York at the time on January 31st was 5:13 p.m. And that's just sunset. So it's still a little bright. So if we want to talk about night, maybe 5:30. Now, if she's having a good time with Carson Daly, most likely it's dinner time around that time. You're having dinner with your friend, maybe 2 hours, right? That's a nice amount of time to be out with your friend. So if it's 2 hours, it would be 7:30 now in New York, which is a 2-hour difference from Arizona, which I fumbled in my video where I said it was 3 hours, but that was Grok's fault. So I take no anything from that. So, but even still, at 2 hours, it's 7:30. So it's 7:30 minus 2 hours, right? 5:30
Mhm.
in Pima County. It looks
Correct.
even worse that I didn't do that right. Okay. Because police were called at 12:03 noon. So I like to give grace. So let's just move it back. Even 5 hours. Even 5 hours. The police have not seen the blood yet. They did not do a cursory check around the property to see if an 84-year-old woman may have fallen, maybe in her backyard, maybe on the side of her house. 5 hours, you haven't seen the blood yet? So why is Savannah at 5 hours later still believing that the doors were propped open because the EMS came and took their mother away, gurneyed her away, right? Now, I had a scenario for that, that Annie is a loving sister and she just tried to delay as long as possible, telling her little sister that mom is missing. So, I mean, she's still hopeful that they could find mom, maybe, within those 5 hours, have some answers for her siblings, maybe even find Nancy, I said. And that would be the innocent person's scenario, right? And then,
Mhm.
of course, there's the other scenario where guilt is for something like that, I wouldn't know how that feels. I don't think most of us knows what kind of guilt that is if you are in the know of something this devious. So putting something off, like telling your family about something that you know happened to your family, might also be a plausible thing, right? Reason for that delay.
I mean, it could. The other thing it could be also is that, law enforcement is looking at this, and I understand what the family might be saying and doing, but, from a law enforcement perspective, there's a lot of emotion involved and things of that nature. You take what they say into consideration, but you have to do your investigation.
Right.
And at that point, law enforcement should have seen the blood, should have noticed the doorbell camera missing, should have noticed also the fact that the floodlights were damaged, in the back where the doors were propped open. All those are indications that she was not that she didn't leave on her own accord. Plus the blood in the front, and so if I'm doing this case, I'm looking at all this. I'm bringing in Annie and Tommaso, and I'm interviewing them for probably a very long time to figure out what's going on. Yeah, what happened the night before? What were you guys doing? Who were you guys with? If what Ashley Banfield said was true, that they were suspicious of him, that suspicion probably came fairly early. I would have assumed. And so, he was the last person to see her, etc. They were out that night, lived close in proximity, missing. And so how much of that is, that 5 hours is an interrogation?
That's true.
And so I would have interrogated them, under the guise of witnesses without having to Mirandize them, because there are witnesses at the time with the.
But what do you really feel, Daniel? What do you really feel happened?
Well, I mean, I don't know. There's just so much there that we don't know. And there's some gaps that make it hard to tell one way or the other. I'm with you, my man. I wish there was so much more information that they would release that would clear a lot of questions that we have that may not pertain to the case. Like that timeline. That timeline is true. Now, you mentioned you like talking about the timeline, and let's go into it. I found on New York Times that I'm assuming, I didn't actually get the chance to read it myself. I had it sent to me by one of my mods, that they had spoken to the family, I guess the friends, and that the meeting for church was supposed to be around 11 a.m. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, from my little research on that actual church, Good Shepherd, in Manhattan, is that promptly they start their stream at 11:15 a.m. And I actually caught the moment that they went live just this Sunday, and they really do go almost promptly at 11 a.m. They start with music, playing drums and playing music until the actual pastor comes on and gives his sermon. So 11 a.m. in New York would be 9 a.m. in Pima County. So I'm assuming the ladies are gathering around 9 a.m. But of course, they could also watch that stream anytime.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I looked it up, it wasn't necessarily a live stream. It looked like it was a recorded video.
That's an interesting point that you bring up, because when I heard that it was a live stream before I ever went, right? Didn't we all picture a church, right?
Yeah.
People sitting, the pastor giving his sermon, and just like that, or even just the preacher on stage. But it's not like that. It's actually a pre-recording of a guy talking to a camera, a talking head, which I don't know if there's even an audience watching him, or is it just a video. So I feel that's kind of weird too, for ladies to gather around just to watch that kind of video, because that could be really, why would you even watch that live? You could watch that at any time if it's just a pre-recorded guy. You know, it's a VOD. It's a video on demand. Like, so that part feels weird. Not that that's anything suspicious, but makes me wonder, is that what the ladies were waiting for? Right?
Mhm.
Just to have a preacher just talking, not part of any, like, was it conjugation or anything? You don't see people making clapping. So it's very odd that a group of churchgoers were gathered around to watch just, I guess, a sermon.
I agree. That was one of the things that I had looked up. I was like, let me check out this live stream that's going on, and I was like, this isn't live. This is a video of a pre-recorded thing that may go live, at a certain time, but majority of people don't watch, the footage as soon as it goes live. Now, if they're pretty consistent that it's at 11:15, 11 a.m., that's a different story. A lot of people are going to be consistently waiting for that. And so, but yeah, I noticed that as well. I was like, man, this isn't a live show. This is a, as you mentioned, video on demand. They can watch it at any point. Um, and so if it was in fact 11 a.m., does that change anything for you if that was the time that they were supposed to meet?
If that's the time they were supposed to meet, that would make the behavior of Annie and Tommaso heading over to Nancy's house a lot more believable. And that would narrow the time gap in terms of receiving the information, becoming worried about your mother, and heading over there. I could see them getting there at 11:56, no problem. 7 minutes later, calling the police. It checks out. I mean, 11 a.m. I mean, everything in this case as well is around, right? Approximately.
That's true.
The only thing that we get solid is when they called the police, because that's recorded on dispatch. So everything else is, yeah, approximately. So we actually don't know if it's 11 a.m. Could be 10:50. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If only they would just give us that timeline and tell us who family is and how they got in the house. Simple stuff like that. It doesn't seem too incriminating.
I mean, the getting into the house, if they got in the same means that the perpetrator did, which I don't think they needed to, right? Because the night before they were able to get in through the garage. Again, maybe Nancy brought a clicker with her, and that's why they were able to get in,
Yeah.
and they don't have access into it, which I doubt. They were the caretakers. I strongly suspect that they had keys at the very least, if not,
Definitely had keys.
exactly. So, which door would they come into, though, is the question mark.
Yeah.
Some people don't use the front door all the time.
Yeah.
Now,
this
go ahead.
reminds me of the time frame that I heard from the interview room, which was family got to the house at 11 a.m., roughly 11 a.m. Does that pose a problem for you if they got to the house shortly after the church friends called?
I mean, that's a long time to be in the house before calling 911. I agree.
Now, I hear Annie moves very slowly, and she talks very slowly too, from interviews that I've watched. Like, she is the perfect contrast to Savannah. It's very interesting that they're sisters and have such different, varying personalities.
Yeah, that is different, but an hour still doesn't make any sense if they got there then.
So what do you think, from your point of view? Give us what you do in 56 minutes. And let's just say you going through like an innocuous way into the house, which is the garage. Okay, that's as innocent a way. You don't see the blood yet. You probably might miss that the back gate is propped open. You go through the garage. So what do you do?
Well, I'm assuming they're going to be making phone calls. Her cell phone was left behind, and so was her hearing aid. Um, I don't know if they'll notice the hearing aid right away, but I'm assuming the cell phone would probably be something that would light up or vibrate that they would have noticed would have been gone. They would have probably been calling her multiple times at this point, even while they're there and discovering that. That should have been a huge red flag right there,
Yeah.
you know? And so, excuse me, had to sneeze there. I, Yeah, if they were there for that long period of time, I think that would be interesting. Now, outside of the interview room saying that they believe them to be there possibly at 11, is there anything to back that up?
Nanos. It was his early interviews. I even found the interview where he said family got over there at 11. He said roughly 11 a.m. He also didn't sound too confident about that. So, I mean, we could give him some grace for not knowing so early on the exact information. But he eventually put 11:56 on the screen. So, whichever, I mean, do we believe Nanos? Right? If we choose to believe Nanos, then 11:56 makes a lot of sense. Right? 7 minutes, you already know something's wrong, call the police. But 56 minutes, right? It actually wouldn't be 56 minutes. You know, if you got there at 11 and called at 12:03, that's an hour and 3 minutes to account for. I
Now,
don't know if Nanos just wants them to appear innocent or he is giving us what he knows. So
uh, I don't understand what the point would be to make somebody appear innocent. But I'll be honest, when it comes to the sheriff or when it comes to the chief of police, they usually aren't like that involved in investigations. Now, this one might be different because of the high priority aspect of it and the amount of questions he's being asked and stuff like that. But at the very early on in this investigation, it probably would have fell under that same guise where majority of the information collecting and evidence collecting and things of that nature is going to be from the detectives and those that are on scene. Now, I'm not sure if Nanos ever arrived on scene. He may have, but
he said
uh,
he did.
which like I said, going back into the Moscow case with Brian Koberger, their police chief was heavily involved to a certain point. Now I can only go based on my law enforcement experience. Now I didn't work a case that was as high profile as this ever. However, the chief and the sheriff were not informed. They were in the briefs, things of that nature. They understood some of the things, but the intimate details of a case probably wasn't their strong suit. Now, I would assume that's not the same today with Nanos, given the amount of info, how prioritized or high profile this case is, and the questions and the interviews that he's been giving. I think he'd have to be well versed into it, but early on, maybe not so much.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he was. I mean, I watched and I remastered for everybody the first interview he ever gave right in front of Nancy's house in all pitch blackness. And he was just talking, almost as if he was just talking just to fill in the air. He seems like the man that does not understand quiet because he will say in the same breath that they don't believe. It's almost like a cartoon character. He is going to say he has every reason to believe that she did not walk out of there on her own. And in the same interview, say she may have been a walkaway. And to call the police if you happen to see her wandering around, she just, we're all she's of sound mind, but we all have those days where maybe we just walk away. How is that possible? And you call the homicide unit. So what was his goal in that interview? Right? It's baffling. So that is our first taste of Sheriff Nanos, and it was pretty bitter if you watch it. And they scrubbed it. They scrubbed it from their Facebook page where I had initially found it. The audio was garbage, and I just had it sitting in my my computer. And once I realized that it was gone, right? Because Juanita Adame, right, the YouTuber, asked me for that video and where I found it. And I said, just go to the Pima County thing. And she said she couldn't find it. And I realized they scrubbed it. And so I took it upon myself to remaster it with much better audio, making sure everyone heard exactly what this man is saying. And he stayed true to form up to this very day with his nonsense. And he'll still, the following day, Daniel, which is the second, he gives another interview with Ashley Banfield, and he said the same thing again. So I don't know how he can put those two things together of a walkaway, a woman who can't walk, and calling out the homicide unit. She's a missing person. Keep your eye out for her, but we're going to stop search and rescue. Okay. How all those things don't make a good investigation, I don't think. You have a walkaway and you call off search and rescue. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, and I don't want to speak for Sheriff Nanos or make excuses for him. He's not the greatest sheriff in the world, in my opinion. But the whole walkaway thing, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to anybody that showed up at the scene. In fact, this document kind of clearly says that says that law enforcement here was able to quickly determine that. Let's see, where was it at? So I can read it exactly.
Mm-hmm. That's what it said.
Yeah, it says here, shortly after law enforcement arrived, they determined that Nancy Guthrie had left basic essentials inside of her home, including her wallet, car, cell phone, hearing aid, and medication. And blood was found outside of the residence near the porch. So this was relatively quickly. So, law enforcement should have understood.
12:15. So I'll say 12:20.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with the rest of that information? You sit on it for 5 hours. I guess. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's just to kind of give, these officers a little bit of grace, I guess. It's a lot to uncompact. It's a lot to uncompact. You're there. There's family that are probably hysterical, worried, stressed out situation. You're looking at a bunch of things that are here. Now time was the essence. You probably should have gotten a equivalent to like a Amber Alert for whatever it is out there in Arizona, to be on the lookout for somebody who's matches her description pretty quickly. And maybe that's why they continued with the walkaway thing, so that they could have some sort of alert out there for her, whether that was a silver alert or some sort of alert, so that way they can have something for people to see. But no, I agree that the optics of this right away should have screamed that this was not, that this was somebody being taken away from their home. As far as the homicide detectives, from what I understand, is that is the standard operation and procedure when there's a missing persons case, that it gets assigned to a homicide for whatever reason.
Okay.
And so, but those are the only two things there. But it's interesting, going back to the beginning and looking at the timeline of things.
It is. You never know when something just jumps out at you, or realize your hatred for a sheriff. So,
yeah. And then, just kind of going back through this, Kalea, actually, there's not really much in here, man, other than I think that this also, in the criminal complaint, the only thing that was different was that it stated that the text messages and the phone call have nothing to do with the February 2nd ransom note. Now, at the time, I don't think that the second one had came in when they had written up the criminal complaint. And so it doesn't specify whether or not they believe that he didn't write the second one either. But I think that's all due to timing.
Mm-hmm. When did the second one come in? I think, was it the 6th?
It was either the 6th or the 7th.
I think 7th is the second plea video. So it should have been the 6th, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, something in that ballpark.
And so I think the criminal complaint was written the 5th. I think that's what day it said on the paperwork, February 5th. So it was beforehand, before that one. So for them not to specify it is because it wasn't there yet. Now, going back to the FBI letters, or the FBI, I'm sorry, it seems like they're a little bit divided on it. It sounds like some people are saying that it's not real. Some folks in the FBI, in fact, the FBI came out saying that they, from Phoenix, that it could be real. It didn't specify that they were 100% real, but that they could be real. What do you think about the ransom notes?
In Savannah's words, I tend to believe they're real because it explains exactly, it explains efficiently the behavior of Nanos, actually, that he is not that completely bumbling. He just believed that the ransom notes were real because if you look at the timeline of when the ransom notes came out, plea video, ransom note comes out, plea video, and what they're saying in it, it aligns very nicely. First ransom note, they're demanding a Bitcoin. I do believe they give a Bitcoin address. I did a little research on that, and if it's just a standalone Bitcoin address, you can't do anything with it. It's only until money moves from that wallet or whatnot. So all they have is that Bitcoin address that they deposited, what was it, a couple $100s in? And
Correct.
of course, that idiot is not going to take a couple $100, right? Maybe they could have put a little more to entice him to move that money, but hey, what's done is done. So after that, you get a plea video from the family saying, or trying to, as I said in my video, tug on the heartstrings. That's really what they were doing, right? Trying to talk to the humanity of these people that took their mother. And it seemed to work because on the 6th, they get an apology letter and also a sad note that Nancy is buried with nature, just to let them know that they are, that they don't have to worry about their mother anymore. She's with God, right? And then they put out on the 7th the second plea video where Savannah starts with, "We understand." And, it's very sad. And everybody could tell that family at this point knows that Nancy is dead. It fits too well for that note not to have been believed. So I will say, like Savannah, I tend to believe it as well. And it is probably from somebody in the know. So it's one more aspect of this case now, because I never took any of these ransom notes seriously when they came out. I never talked about it or anything until the timeline made sense, which it does to me now. And if Savannah tends to believe that it's real, I mean, who am I not to? Because she gets way more information. She's talking with the FBI. So, and there's the things that only people at the crime scene can know, okay? Which is a very interesting thing to think about.
That's the part that makes me kind of cautious about it, because if there was things that only the person would know that was that detailed, why would there be some that question it? It seems like whatever is in there, that there is something that is giving people a pause to say that it's not, completely fake. But it doesn't say that there's something in there that makes it completely valid at the same time. Whatever it is, it's vague enough that it could be possible that somebody could have gotten some of that information from the media, from, being out there possibly. If somebody went out there, I talked to Alex. He said that he was out there the day after the disappearance, the morning of, and that the entire block was packed full of media and social media journalists and journalists in general, on both sides of the street. Could somebody have had a drone of some sort or gotten wind of the back, floodlights being broken? Possibly. The stuff inside of the house, it's a little bit more interesting now. If it's an Apple Watch on the floor, I'm more inclined to believe it. If it's an Apple Watch on the desk, not so much. You know what I'm saying? It depends. The Apple Watch on the floor, though, it's an interesting thing to remember. You know, either way, if let's just say that they're real, Apple Watch on the desk or next to the bed, that's an interesting thing to remember. To me, that tells me it was planted if it's real and the guy put it there and that's how he remembers it. If it's on the floor and it's real, then, there's a good possibility that Nancy slept with it. And when he pulled her out of bed, he realized that she had it and threw it on the floor. If it's on the floor, I am way more likely to believe that the ransom notes are real.
Yeah.
If that ends up being the case, that the note says there was a Apple Watch white band on the floor near the bed, I'm like 90%. I mean, because somebody could get lucky, but I don't think so. Not to that detail. You know what I mean?
I
But
feel
if
like they'd
it's
have to get lucky at least twice for
yeah,
the FBI to believe them. With the Apple Watch, I'm almost positive Nancy's going to charge that thing on her table. So
mhm.
there's a struggle. I'm thinking she's not going willingly. I mean, I don't think. Yeah, I keep hitting this.
Well, there's blood outside, so she definitely didn't. And also on this document, it does say that a Bitcoin wallet address was the demand listed a Bitcoin wallet on the February 2nd ransom note. So that was in there, that there was the Bitcoin wallet.
Right.
I know you said that you had believed that it was. It definitely
Yeah.
was.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then, so to me, that's kind of where I sit when it comes to the ransom notes. I struggle to believe that this case was for ransom. And the reason behind it is because one, they took a while to ask for it, and two, they got Savannah to agree to pay, even with understanding that she had passed, still paid. So they still could have gotten payment out of this, and yet they didn't. And so I struggle to believe that the ransom notes are, even if they're real, were ever to actually recuperate money.
Yeah, we struggle together
Yeah.
because that is bizarre as well. I don't think they ever wanted that. If there
Yeah.
was anything to gain, it'd be something else, some other roundabout way that doesn't look as fishy, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that'd be the case. And it just kind of goes back to like, why do that? And I have two very solid reasons. One of them is the one that you gave me, about everything that you had mentioned about, this gives, it tells basically law enforcement and everybody that something did happen to her. She did pass away. So you get an opportunity here for, if somebody did have like an interest via will or something of that nature, that's possible. The other possibility is also the fact that maybe perhaps somebody, and I still kind of struggle with this one. I still think that this one's possible, is that this was like a revenge fantasy type thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that they addressed it to Savannah makes me believe that that might be the objection. It's weird because it goes, "Hello, Savannah. We have your mother, Nancy." Like, it's not like she has a different mother, but they put it out there that way, which is interesting to me. And then
Performative.
very performative, just like the him walking up to the front there. I wonder if that was a way of making her feel like, the whole, I made you feel something, you responded to me, therefore I'm significant. I had a criminal profiler on my channel here recently from the UK, Carrie Danes, well-renowned. And we were talking about the Brian Koberger case. And one of the things that I had brought up to her was the fact that in that case, Brian Koberger allegedly may have broken into one of his other teacher assistants residents, went in there and moved things around so that that person was aware that somebody not only broke in, but was manipulating things. And what she said was that that was a sign of somebody who was wanting to go into somebody's home, somebody's safe spot, and show that person that they're not safe, and then see that reaction And that when it comes to those type of folks, that they have that, well, you feel because of me, now I am more significant type of sense. And I wonder if that played a role in this.
Yeah, I mean, those are hard emotions to find rapport with, I guess, for a normal human being. Yeah. So, I mean, if we were to go that angle, and this is just an obsession with Savannah,
Mhm.
and good luck, right? I mean, who is this guy then? I mean, here's why I like you, Daniel. Okay, as much as because you don't have confirmation bias, which is good. I try not to have that as well. Even though I lean towards a certain direction, I will never ever say I'm positive about anything, or if I see this detail and it just matches just perfect, I'm not going out there and saying anything. There are things I mentioned in the last time I was on your show that I would never show. Right? I'll just keep it to myself if I find something that damning or whatnot. I'm
Right.
not to say that I have, but I have found things that I find compelling. That's just to say that I do respect how you view this case, right? Now, a lot of people get the idea of which way I'm leaning, okay? And I'm sure you do as well. But
Mhm.
you also stand by the fact that it's possible that this could be an obsession case. It could be just a rando out of nowhere who realized that Nancy was the mother of someone so famous in Pima County that he just got obsessed, right? It's just like a mind frame that we can't grasp ourselves as normal human beings. And that will be feels like an impossible case to crack. Right? It's just too random. And the guy on the porch, no matter what his physical attributes are that fits this guy or that guy, let's just say it fits a lot of people, right? If we think about it, right? A lot of people like Luke, a lot of people like Carlos. Now we're talking about DJ Mojito and stuff. Could those be the eyes? That's why I've stopped overlaying pictures because I
Yeah.
can see what it can do to people. And yeah, I guess the best that we can do is just stick with the facts and lean how we lean, and hopefully they catch this idiot soon.
I hope so too. I tend to think that as much as I wish this guy was an idiot, though, I don't think
He
he's
might not.
that. Yeah, I don't think he's that idiotic. I think this guy's much more intelligent than we give him credit for.
He could be as
And
intelligent as he wants. I'll just say he's still an idiot. It's just because of what he did. A smart idiot, right? So,
yeah, yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of smart idiots.
right.
But to me, when I look at this, there was a video 2 months before Nancy disappeared, where Savannah returned home,
I've
and
seen it. Yes.
it puts her on a pedestal. Now, if you're somebody who maybe perhaps was affected by something that she reported, I'm assuming that this person, if they are the ransom note writers and that all is correct, then that person is local. That person is very local to the Tucson area. They may not live in Tucson anymore, but I bet you they did at one point, and they probably don't live too far away from Tucson. Maybe Phoenix, maybe somewhere in between. Now, if this person has these feelings for Savannah, maybe perhaps they were affected by a reporting. Maybe somebody lost their job. Somebody maybe killed themselves based off of what they reported. I don't know. She's done a lot of reports, and somebody could see that as a different avenue. And then seeing her returning, seeing her on this pedestal, seeing her go through the college, and on the college there's these magazines that say rumor Savannah's coming home, et cetera, et cetera, and seeing how much of a pedestal they put her on. If you're somebody who really dislikes her, if you're somebody that was really hurt by her, I wonder how that video makes you feel. And
Well,
if that's
you brought up
that,
the Tepi case, right?
yep,
Same thing, right? Their wedding video made Michael McKee feel a certain way. If that video never existed on YouTube, I actually think Michael McKee might have moved on with another woman, or maybe even started a family and never became this psycho killer of his ex-wife. Who knows? But since that video was there and made him feel a certain way, I mean, that could actually fit that profile you're trying to say of a person seeing a Savannah video. And she's had a history in Pima County. That's where she grew up in. Who knows how many hearts she's broken in the past, that just happened to see that Savannah's coming home. Here's the thing, realizing her mom still lives there. She says it many times that her mom is still here. She won't leave. I can't remember, but did she ever say that she lived by herself? I can't remember.
I don't think she did. She just said my mom still lives there.
My mom still lives here. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, like I said, you're absolutely right. She does put that out there that her mom still lives there. And the other thing that bothers me about this case, and I'm not saying that this is 100% a drone, not saying that whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it sure does look like one. And if it is, why take it into the house? This is one of the things that was bothering me. Like when we first talked the other time, I just realized that there was a drone in here. And so I hadn't really put my mind to it as to all the ins and outs, but I have since. And my question was, why take it into the house? Like, well, there's no purpose of taking it into the home if you're trying to surveil the property from the outside. Well, I watched Steve's video on the drone footage. And what he did was he pulled out a drone, went out there on a full moon night. And what we discovered was it is impossible, even under a full moon, to fly one of those without without it being one of those high-tech infrared, see in the dark type of drones, which I'm not saying that this is or isn't, but it doesn't appear this is one that breaks down. This appears to be one that's older. And so I was like, even if that was the case, if he was surveilling the exterior of the residence, if he was surveilling the neighborhood, etc., why take it inside of the house? It doesn't make any sense. And then I got to thinking, I was like, well, what if he wanted to memorialize the scene? What if he wanted to relive this again? And so you take it in because you can't turn on your phone. Your phone, you can't turn it on. And then now, if you were just trying to take a video or a picture or anything like that, just for the ransom purposes, you could have gotten any old camera or anything else. In fact, that's what you would have wanted to do, but you don't. You take a drone. Most drones have like a gimbal action. And when I was talking to Steve, what he told me was he actually, when he memorializes crime scenes, he would be known to walk around with a drone in his hand because it has a gimbal. It has higher quality cameras. And so if this guy's purpose was to relive this screams to me more fantasy than anything else. Why else would he be taking a drone in if not to get a high quality gimbal video of what he's doing? And I just go back to that this guy is reliving this, and this is a bit of a trophy of his.
Yeah, very plausible if that is a drone. I will also add, I saw the video where you had Steve on and you talked about that this is a drone. I even got an email from Steve to discuss a few things.
Yeah.
The thing that we're looking at, it looks like a drone ready to fly. The thing I know about drones, though, is once they're shut off, they fold into a nice compact thing. So if Porch Guy over here really was in a rush, he's putting the drone in jeopardy of being broken because his wings are still out, his legs are still out. So
it could be an older one.
I could see, yeah, it looks like a drone, but I can't, I just can't go with that angle yet. But yeah. I hear what you're saying about using it on a gimbal. or a gimbal like to take home and relive the scene of the crime.
Yeah, no, and whatever is in there, as you can see, there's a three-dimensional object that's sticking out.
Yeah.
Now, I agree with you. Most drones fold in. That's why I thought maybe this is an older one. An older one doesn't, and newer ones sometimes require phone connectivity, an app, things of that nature. The older ones don't. That might be why you want to use an older one. And so, that's kind of what I was thinking when it came to this, because I can't, for the life of me, figure out if this is a drone. Again, and I'm not saying 100% because I'm not Superman. I don't have X-ray vision here. It just the impression looks like one. It also looks like his backpack is open.
It's definitely open.
And so he either just put that in, put something else in, took something out. Maybe perhaps he had his gun in his holster in the backpack, and because I don't think he drove there that way, you know what I mean? And so he gets to the scene, pulls the gun out, doesn't close his backpack all the way, right?
Yeah, perfectly plausible. Or he stole a frog. He stole a porcelain frog from Nancy's yard.
It's
That
possible.
could also be a frog. I'm sorry, I'm being stupid. Sorry.
No, I mean, I've gone through like the amount of things that this could be, and like I said, I mean, could it be some sort of weird contraption with straps that are sticking out to it, some overalls that are folded up in a weird way?
I feel like
maybe
it would be more plausible if this was all planned out, if this was all performative, that is a kidnap kit in that bag.
Yeah.
Possibly even a change of clothes, because maybe he doesn't want to go back out on the streets looking like this, right? So now that I think about it, right, a change of clothes actually would make sense, because what if somebody saw this outfit? I'm pretty sure they could put two and two together, sweater, pants, whatever those shoes are, right? Those Skechers possibly. So he is going to change if he's going back out into the community, into public, by the off chance of someone seeing him. But he might not change. He just takes off his mask, right? And just keeps driving. So who knows?
I have no idea. Now, I did get an email, and I wanted to share this with you really quick. This is what I got sent earlier about some possible shoes. I know you've done some work on the shoes. If these possibly could be it. To me, I see some possible shoe prints in the blood. I see possibly 3. I don't see the sole aligning with those, but let's see the rest of it. And I know you've done some extensive work on it, some Skechers. This model here looks a little bit different on this part.
Right.
I think the one on the image goes all the way across.
Yeah. Skechers vary so widely. It's annoying.
They do. Steve thinks they're Skechers as well, I believe.
They're comfortable for a caper like this.
And they're cheap and easy to come by.
Very cheap.
And so I wouldn't be surprised. Let me take a couple of questions, guys. If you guys have any questions for us, put a couple of stars in the comment section so I know you're talking to us. Somebody had asked me if I was in Texas. I am. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. Let's see. Thought on T's bandmate, Walter Gonsalves, being a federal public defender in Tucson. Did that impact this case in any way? I wasn't aware of
anything to do with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine finding out Walter Gonsalves was Kalela's public defender. Well, what kind of story is this now?
Yeah. Mary comes in saying, "Where are Nancy's journals?" I'm asking Savannah.
Did Savannah mention that she took journals?
I'm not familiar with journals.
Yeah. I'm not sure where that journal angle is coming from. So I've heard it since the beginning, though. Something about journals, but it's never been right solid. Might be just people making stuff up, I guess.
Yeah. You know what? Here's an interesting point. In the plea, it says something about Nancy being seen last in her house. Everyone assumes it was by another person. but maybe she was seen on the camera inside of her house. That's an interesting point.
It is an interesting point, but why would they want to trick us like that with that kind of language? I mean, I'm assuming that's coming from Nanos, not that actual document, but because Nanos said that family saw her in the house, which could mean multiple things. Maybe they're just taking that verbiage and just plopping it right into the plea agreement. But I remember someone left a comment that made an interesting point about this plea agreement, which I still need to go over, but thank you for sending it to me. And that was something about, if this guy has nothing to do with the Nancy Guthrie case, then why is there so much about the Nancy Guthrie case in his plea agreement? Like, it's sort of like, why are they putting the Superman origin story in every Superman movie? Right? Is it necessary if everybody already knows it? Same thing with the plea agreement. Why are we discussing the Nancy Guthrie case if this guy is being charged with something unrelated to the Nancy Guthrie case? I thought that's an interesting thought.
Yeah. I see the point. Because I mean, it talks about Nancy Guthrie last seen inside of her residence. What does that have to do with him, contacting? I think all you have to do is say is that Nancy Guthrie has been, rumored to have been abducted, based on evidence that it's plausible that she was abducted for ransom. Could be other reasons. I mean, I don't think that you can put an official, this is why she was abducted at this point. I mean, we have some ransom notes, and so one could say that. But, Nancy Guthrie disappeared from her residence, on this date and time. TMZ and other media outlets informed the public that there was ransom notes on this date and time. And then on this date and time, the family published these videos for the kidnappers to contact their mother. And so, yeah, you're right. It does include things that are unnecessary for him per se.
Yeah, I wonder if they do that for other cases of.
Well,
is there anything like this?
It depends, right? Like, when I was in law enforcement, I had a pretty good conviction rate. It was 100%. Everybody I arrested got convicted or pled out. One of the things that made me that was because I was super detailed about everything. My DWI case folder was probably 30 pages long. Just me writing down information about everything that needed to be on there. If I made an arrest, I covered everything, from, what was plausible, what wasn't. If I did a traffic stop, for instance, I would include the margin of error on the radar, which at the time was ±2. And so I wouldn't give anybody a citation or anything. Well, honestly, I never gave anybody citations for driving probably 12 over. If you were under 12 over, you were probably getting a warning. But I would include that in all of my cases that I had pulled over, because there was some times where I had to pull somebody over for barely speeding, but that's because I had intel that they had drugs or something in the vehicle. So I was looking for probable cause for anything. But even in those situations, I made sure that the margin of error that was reading was above 2 miles an hour. So if somebody was doing 22 and a 20, I was like, man, if I go and arrest this person based off of the probable cause of the stop, I'm probably it's not going to work. The margin of error is 2 miles an hour. And so, a good lawyer is going to get that thrown out, the probable cause on the stop. So I would always make sure on everything that I covered all my bases on all those things. And so I was super detailed. If I did this report, I probably would have written about maybe 15 pages, but that's just me. And so it depends.
Timeline.
I probably would have put too much information and got in trouble. But I would have made sure that there was a conviction, which, in this case here, what I write down also on my reports is different than, for instance, like the criminal complaint or the probable cause affidavit. Those things are summarized. So this being about 2 pages long, it's not overly too much, but I do see the point about why they had so much of Nancy Guthrie's case in here when you don't need it.
Exactly. I think they could have used those letters to better explain more. Like, what website did you go to get those phone numbers? Right?
Well,
What were you thinking? Yeah.
I'm hoping that inside the actual like reports from law enforcement that's in there.
Affidavit.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Now, why it wouldn't be in, for instance, something that is public like this is because you don't want copycats. Even though it's probably easy to figure out how he did it, you don't want somebody to get the answers to the test, go and figure out what their phone number is, and then make, similar demands and do it do it better than what this guy did. Maybe perhaps use a VPN, or maybe perhaps they're not meth heads that are that are losing it, and actually have a brain that, if the right person had certain information, which again, if they had a brain, and they probably, if this guy could pull up the information, anybody probably could. But
it might actually not be that hard. It's just something, normal people don't do. So
that's true. That's
I mean,
true.
we used to have phone books, right? I'm assuming there's something like that on the internet now where you could just look somebody up. Right.
Oh yeah, you definitely can. I mean, I when I was in law enforcement and stuff like this was even back then. And even when I started getting into true crime, I would use some of the tactics that I used back then, and I could find a lot of people's information very quickly. But that comes with a little bit of know-how. I'm not necessarily certain that Kalea is in the know.
Yeah, if you saw his music videos, then yeah, he's performing high out of his mind for like 5 guys in a small room. And he records that and puts it on his YouTube channel, which is gone now. There was a YouTube channel literally called Derek Kalela. He really likes his name, and he puts it on his Gmail. Right? So wait a minute. Derek Kalela at gmail.com. That's why his YouTube channel was Derek Kalela. Okay. It all makes sense now. But that channel used to exist, but it's gone now.
Interesting.
And luckily, I clipped one of the weirdest drumming sessions where you can see Kalela full on. He has no shirt on, beating on his drums, and there's a blow-up doll. Now, I mean, that's absurd enough, but I do believe it's a male blow-up doll. So yeah, hey, to each his own. And Derek Kalela is a special one for sure, who doesn't even wait for his mother. Like when he comes out, he just walks. His mom is having a hard time getting down those steps, and he's gone or he's out of the screen. So just from that, that this guy has put his mom through some things. Maybe if he has nothing to do with it, him going to rehab is probably making her heart full of hope and joy and love. When you have your loved one maybe finally turn their life around. I mean, he's in his early 40s, right? So he should, at least at this point, give up that goth punk scene and drugs, and maybe he could do something with his life. From what I read in the past, he used to work for the county clerk, and that's when he stole all that money. So he could get his life together. And I guess if he's not involved, hopefully he will. Interesting character.
That's interesting you bring that up. I didn't know he worked for the county clerk. That's how I used to figure out how to get people's phone numbers and addresses.
Really?
Going through the county. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about him.
Do you think if he no longer worked for the county that he could still access certain portals to get information?
Yeah, it's all public information. And like that's how I used to be able to get a lot of information about where people live, their addresses, how many properties that they own.
Kalela, Daniel?
I think we did.
Oh my God. It has nothing to do with it. He just literally worked at the county clerk.
Yeah, because those are all public records, and I wonder if that would be something why they would not want to inform that. you would not want to put that out there
Hmm.
that he gained their information from government websites.
Yeah. So let's just put it this way. Okay. So we've been thinking he's been roaming the dark webs looking for their information.
Yeah,
But because you just learned that he used to work for the county clerk, that that would mean he would use it if he still had access to it, right? He didn't need to go anywhere else.
that's
Didn't
correct.
need to look anywhere else. So the likelihood of him using that portal is very high, in your opinion, do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, so to not give people information. Now, some places have changed some things because, like, I tried doing it here recently for my address, and it didn't pop up. Now, I use Data Seal, which is linked in the description if you want to, hide your information and stuff like that. So that might help me with that. But I was trying to find an address for somebody else in another case also, and I couldn't find it in their government website for the county. And so I wonder if because it used to be, especially back in the day, you could just put in an address and it'll tell you the homeowner's name, who's lived there before, how much they paid for the place, etc. And then if you didn't have the address, you put in their name and all of their addresses in that county would pop up. It's pretty scary to think about how easy it is for somebody to get your information, to be honest with you. But that's all trackable and traceable. And I wonder if that's why they didn't want to put the website in here, is because,
That makes
but that would piss people off too, right? Because if he's using, tools that he had from his employment there to commit this crime, or even if it's just the knowledge and the know-how, him getting 5 years probation and still doing that, it's frustrating.
Yeah. That must mean he illegally used that portal that he shouldn't have anything to do with
Yeah.
anymore. There's got to be something else, because on September 10th is the final sentencing, and I'm not too sure, but there have been murmurs that they could tack on actual prison time at the sentencing, because it's all up to the judge at this point. He's going to review it and he goes, maybe this is too light. Let's give him the 4 years.
That's true.
Say. So September 10th, I mean, that's the new target, to see what happens with Derek Kalela. And that's interesting. It's interesting. See, this is why we talk, right? Sometimes
Exactly.
something just pops up and you know something, and here we are.
Yeah.
County clerk.
County clerk. Yeah, I mean that you have access to a lot of information, and more so how to search it and how to use it.
Oh, but
because
would he have access to Tucson?
oh yeah, anybody. I could have access to any country or any county.
Yeah, that makes it.
This is
even
public. Yeah,
scarier.
this is public. I could look up any county as long as I got the county name and a little bit of information about somebody. Yeah, you can look up a lot of things.
Yikes. Okay. Maybe
Yeah.
we should get off this topic.
Yeah. No, it's anywhere and everywhere. Like I had found, like in the Idaho case, I had found because initially, you have an ex-boyfriend, they just broke up, she's moving to Texas, there's phone calls, etc. I mean, everything kind of pointed in the direction of Jack DeCour. So initially I was a little bit interested in that aspect. And so I did my own investigation on where he was at, where family lived, because the murder happened at like 4:00 in the morning. And I was like, all right, what's the triggering event? And then I had found out that his family lived a couple hours away. And this is before we found out that he was at when he was still in town and at the bar that night. And so I was like, man, I wonder if something happened. The phone calls are coming in at 2:00 in the morning, and then an hour later, something happens. And so I was kind of following that angle until it became improbable. And by that, I meant by the time frame. You know, given how close he was, given the type of crime that it was, if he was involved, it would have been a crime that didn't have a lot of, it would have been out of emotion. It would have been in the moment. There's not a lot of preparation for those type of things. There's a lot of mistakes that are made. And those type of things that happen in those type of cases, that after about 3 weeks, I was like, man, this sounds more like somebody outside of the circle. You know, the further away we get from the time frame that this occurred, usually means that the further away from the inside circle the perpetrator is. Not always, you know. We got, like, for instance, the David case. That case took forever to get him arrested. I think it was fairly obvious that that guy had committed the crime. And so there are cases that go longer than that, but majority of them, when you have something like that, where there's not a lot of premeditation, there's not a lot of planning and things of that nature, something in the moment and something filled by emotion, usually result in a lot of mistakes made that usually result in an arrest. The McKee case took them 12 days to arrest that guy. And so that when that happened, I just, you know, followed that lead. But yeah, that's how I found out a bunch of information about about Idaho from Texas.
That's wild.
That is wild. Rubik's Rubik's comes in saying, what about the DNA they found inside the house? Is that debunked? Thank you so much. Nanos claims that they're working genealogy on it. Now, if that is the case, if they found something concrete, which, you know, the last interview that Nanos did, he seemed a little bit more confident, in my opinion. And I think that he brought out some information. He brought out the genealogy, DNA, and stuff that they're working with. If there is genealogy being done for a suspect, which I assume there should be an abundance of DNA, of unknown DNA in that house by this perpetrator, if he's not in, you know, from the home. You know, he has mouth light. He was in there for a long period of time. I assume that you're going to find transfer DNA of his in multiple places. And so that should stick out more so than, because, you know, like Nancy was in an Uber. So, you know, how much DNA could she have gotten in on her person from then? She also interacted with her family late in the evening, who had interacted most likely with other people throughout the day. And so all that DNA combined is, you know, you're going to get unknown DNA in the house that you have no idea where it came from. But somebody being in the house that long of a time frame, you should see a consistent amount there. And so if there is that, that tells me 100% that the person that committed this crime is not known to us yet, because you wouldn't need to do a genealogy to a suspect that you had in mind, because all you have to do is just take their DNA and then match it and see if it matches or not. You wouldn't have to do a genealogy. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I mean, it should be a foreign DNA, right? When a suspect is, or a profile is created, should have nothing to do with Nancy Guthrie. Now, the only issue with that is, I mean, for me, I would tend to believe that they're not going to find anything suspicious, right? I wouldn't hold my breath on the DNA, I guess you could say.
I don't hold my breath on it either. And the reason behind it is because of what I just mentioned. Like Brian Koberger, he left his DNA on a knife sheath. There was tons of DNA in that house because it was a party house. People came in and out. There was like 150 people there the night before, and they didn't clean up. And so you had an item that was left behind that was brought in by the perpetrator. So, you know, all right, we have this DNA. We know it's his. For them to say they have so much DNA that's mixed in together tells me that they can't identify DNA that they know belongs to the abductor, which tells me there's not that abundance of DNA. Because, you know, I would expect that you would have unknown DNA male A on this place, that place, and that place. And then you might have unknown DNA male B, C, D, and E, but the one that, you know, that comes out the most is the one that you would want to target first, because, you know, he was in the house for like 50 minutes. You know, he had made contact with Nancy. He got her out of the bed. He at least walked her or moved her out of the house. There should be DNA in that area. and it should stick out. And if it did, the genealogy, I think in the Brian Koberger case took about 6 weeks, maybe a little bit less. I think it was actually a lot less because the murders happened November 13th. They got his name December 19th. And in between that time, so a little bit over a month. And in between that time, the DNA was taken to Othram in Texas, and they couldn't get a match. And so the FBI took over midway and then found the name. And so it was probably about 2 or 3 weeks from the time that the FBI got the DNA to the time that they got Brian Koberger's name.
That's fast.
This is a lot longer than that.
Yeah. Well, the problem was the mix. They couldn't separate the blood, and they didn't give it to the FBI. So there's just foibles from the very beginning of releasing the house after 30 hours, which it's the first time I realized that is preposterous. But since everybody is saying that, you could see why that would be preposterous, especially when the FBI comes in 4 days later and wonders why the crime scene has been released and closes everything back up after everything is contaminated. It's I don't know. I guess you can't make this stuff up. It truly bizarre way to start a case.
It is. It really is. I have a few people asking me to ask you about the blood pattern being a wheel.
Yeah. So I had a theory, right? Because if you look at that little blood transfer, which has to be a blood. Do you have the picture of it, Daniel, anywhere?
Yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about, right? You can clearly see that those two things, the blood spatter or the expired blood, expirated blood, is a different color and even a different density from that transfer blood. The transfer blood is actually a little bit more red, which makes me want to believe, if you could see it, you see how it feels different?
Yeah.
So that is darker, right? Where we assume Nancy coughed and it was dripping blood. I did the research on how long it takes for blood to dry, and it would be in 50-degree weather like it was Pima County that night. It would take it about maybe 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So once that blood dries, it cannot be smeared anymore. It would more likely flake. Now that transfer blood there, I feel, is a pneumatic wheel of some sort. So just by the way it looks, that's why nothing else is smeared. So I feel that there was some type of contraption with a pneumatic wheel. I haven't found the pneumatic wheel. I found something very close to that tread pattern. So I'm never going to say for 100% this is the case. But the only way for that theory to work is for her to have expirated that blood 45 minutes before she is wheeled out, which also presents a timeline problem because Nancy has to be attacked at her door, which feels like the only way I could explain that is if she opened the door. And I presented who she would open the door for. It would either be someone she knew knocking at her door, or maybe a police officer, say, or someone pretending to be a police officer. Would she open the door for anybody else? Probably not. If she saw the porch guy, definitely the police are getting called. So who was knocking at her door if someone was knocking at her door? And I presented another interesting idea also, was that we've always assumed that Nancy is asleep at around 2 a.m. What if she's not? You know, my mom is not 84. She's a lot younger than that, but she stays up all night sometimes. Just when watching YouTube or whatnot, you just can't sleep sometimes. And we don't know if Nancy is a deep sleeper or maybe she has trouble sleeping. You never know. What if she is in her living room and someone is knocking at the door? So that would be my way of explaining why that pneumatic wheel blood transfer is so clean in a way and did not smear anything else, because it had to have been 45 minutes after that first initial bleeding, which also presents another issue. Nancy's bleeding and the culprit takes her back into the house. So he attacks her at the door, takes her back into the house, and wheels her out eventually. And a blood droplet gets on the pneumatic wheel, on the tread, and as it's spinning, it takes a full cycle to get to that blood stain and just leaves that one tread there. It's a hard thing to grasp. And as I'm talking about it, I know it's very hard to grasp, but it's just a theory. I'm trying to explain why that's dark blood and why that's a lot lighter. And this picture was taken February 2nd, I believe. So that blood technically is pretty fresh. I know it's a lot. And I don't talk about that theory very much, but
the possibility of her being attacked at the door, that's possible. I'd like to see the rest of the house. I think it's also plausible that this is the point of no return, right? Like, she's now leaving the house with an intruder who's probably forcing her out. Maybe she makes a last stand. Maybe she screams at the door, and that's what causes it. I do think you're right about that blood, the aspirated blood being there a lot earlier than the wheel blood or the footprint blood. I think you're absolutely right there. I think, my thought process was always that because of how close to the ground she would have had to have been to cause that type of a cluster, I think she was probably close to about maybe 12 to 17 inches off the ground. There's no handprint on the ground like her, using to push up. There's also not an absence of a hand, or meaning like if you had your hand on the ground and you coughed and blood splattered onto your hand and onto the ground, when you removed your hand, you're going to see an empty spot that resembles a hand. I don't see that either. And so that's what told me that she was probably restrained at this point. I think she was sitting there for an extended period of time. That's why we see a lot more drops right here than versus anywhere else.
Wait, you said she's sitting there for an extended period of time. I never thought of it like that. So she's on her front porch and he has her restrained, and then she needed to cough and she leaned over and coughed up blood. Is that what I'm picturing here?
Yeah, I think he put her down in a prone position onto the mat here, and I think she was leaning over and coughed and spat up. She wouldn't been able to do this if she had a hood or a gag,
right?
Which made me question, initially, like, well, was this always going to be an abduction? Because, why wouldn't you take, restraints, a hood, a gag? You have a big old bag, but why wouldn't you take that? Now, the thought process that maybe perhaps she started to have a medical issue and he couldn't gag her anymore because she couldn't breathe or something of that nature. Now, when I look at it too, I see a lot of drops right here where the blood was, less drops here. You see that? So it's a less drops together. So that tells me that right here, she was there for a period of time. A lot longer right here than she was here. Now
she's being taken away is how you picture it at that point.
What I think is at this point she's they walk outside. Maybe she yells, maybe she screams. I don't know. I think he hits her. He puts her on the ground. Maybe he does it on purpose because he needs to keep her on the ground. And then he goes and moves the vehicle and then he comes back for her. But I think that she was there for an extended, there's just way too many drops here for her not to be there for an extended period of time. And then
that's right.
Whatever this is doesn't affect these drops here.
Yeah, that's the puzzling thing. While we're on the blood, I want to present to you a thought that just came to my mind. Okay, they know that this is Nancy's blood, but do they just take like one solitary drop, maybe a couple of drops. But I'm assuming they're not taking a little bit from every single drop to verify that this is all Nancy's blood.
I
Could it be
agree.
possible there's a mixture here of the perp's blood if Nancy is not going willingly? A scratch, something. Maybe one of this is his drop of blood. I would really like to see the process of, processing this crime scene. How do they determine that this is all Nancy's blood?
Well, this right here, you see how it's missing
Yeah.
like a half circle? That looks like that was swabbed. That one looks like it was swabbed.
Okay.
That looks swabbed.
Weren't these explained as aerations?
They could be. Some of them can.
Yeah.
But some of them also can be swabs, because that's what
Right.
you would do is you would get a swab and you would gently just right into the droplet. And so like this halfway like that, like this looks like it's been rubbed. This one, not so much. There's like a little thing in the middle.
Mhm.
This one a little bit. But I'd have to get Steve on which ones that he thought were swabbed and which ones he thinks are not. But that's how they would determine, is by swabbing it. I would assume and I would hope that they swabbed more than one. Because you're right, this can be a mixture of blood. He could have been injured. He could have smacked her, and in the process of doing that, hit the wall or hit something else, and it caused him to bleed. And this could be a mixture as well. So yeah, I would assume and hope that that was the case.
This is crazy, but I would want to know if they swabbed that blood transfer. What if that blood transfer was something the perp didn't even know? Does that look swabbed to you?
It doesn't.
So if that other blood is older and has a different color, I mean, everybody's blood is different. I assume some people's are redder than others. I can imagine, but this is different. This is an outlier in terms of what we're looking at in terms against all this other. It's darker. That's lighter, right?
Mhm.
Did they swab this one? What if this gives you a completely different DNA marker here?
Yeah. I mean,
So
it
I guess
could.
we're just gonna have to wonder.
Now, what I do think though is that this wasn't there. This was transferred there, meaning if this is a footstep or even if this is a tire, this person stepped into or rolled into a larger pool of blood and then put this here.
Yeah.
Which, if it's a wheel, I would assume that we would see some.
I feel I know where you're getting at. And I've thought about that because it would smear, obviously, if you were to roll over it like that.
Well, not so much the smear part, but like I would anticipate or suspect that there would be other markings, because I think that there's a good chance that this blood came from the mat. You know, I think she was bleeding on the mat. Somebody either stepped on the mat or somebody rolled off the mat to get here. Where's the other part to get here? It would make more sense for a step, because you can step that way and you can also step in a weird position. You can change your foot pattern,
Yeah.
but a wheel, not so much.
If it was a foot pattern, this is why I never thought it was a foot pattern, because he'd have to step again somewhere and create another similar, if not lighter, transfer.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna have to ask you to entertain me by imagining this: that Nancy was attacked at her door. They brought her back in to the house. They know they're not going to be able to carry 150 pounds of dead weight. Okay. So they have a hand truck. They put her on the hand truck inside the house and they wheel her out, but she is still bleeding. And one drop falls onto one of the treads of the pneumatic wheel. Now you have to picture the wheel once it drops on top. Okay. There, she's on the porch at this point, on this hand truck, so that he
Mm.
can close the door. And so the blood drops on the pneumatic wheel. And of course, when you roll it, there's that one print. And by the time that one print is made, which is the transfer blood that I'm looking at, you're at the step already. You're at the step of the porch, meaning you're going to have to lift that wagon, because if you let that wagon drop, it's going to make a noise. And I'm sure they want to be as quiet as possible. So I'm thinking he's lifting that part and he's gone. And there might be another transfer on the cobble road of hers, right? So I wish someone would have turned on their HD 4K and recorded, the pebbles of her walkway and the blood, but everyone just kind of panned over it really fast, which is also frustrating. So yeah, I mean, that's just one theory, because I appreciate that you agree with me that that blood looks like a different color and consistency, and the time frame of it being created might have been a different time, because obviously it didn't interfere with the dry blood or any other blood. Now, you wanted to talk about that pattern, that arrow?
Oh, that there's a couple of patterns, but yeah, no, I agree with you there. There's this one right here, and I'll bring. I have another picture of it. So you have that step, you have this step, and then you have this weird pattern here that looks kind of triangular here.
Yeah, it could be a shoe, right?
It could be a shoe, could be a wheel, could be a few things. Now, the only thing with the wheel thing is, like, these prints are fairly close together. Like, if you had somebody on a wheel contraption, whether it's a a walker, whether it's that or a wheelchair or something, you'd be moving a lot quicker than what these drops indicate to me. So there's no directionality between the drops.
Here's an
And
interesting thought, Daniel, about the blood. Who's to say that the blood is leaving the porch and not going towards the porch up until a point where she has to cough? What if she was attacked on her walkway? It started bleeding. Bleeding gets more intense up until the point, like, this would fit your blood pattern of slowly making your way to the door. And when she's at the door, she coughs, has to lean over and cough. The direction of the blood, the tail of the blood, doesn't give much away, I believe. But for her to be out on her walkway with somebody, I don't know. I've never really entertained that angle, but
well, I mean, the droplets are just so close together. Like, she would have to be bleeding very quickly, heavily, to be moving with a pace and still create these. And I don't know. I mean, I think we'd see some directionality here. It just seems like you're right. Like this just very slow, very slow pace, which tells me she was walking when she created these droplets. Now, which direction she was going, I never thought of it that she could have been going back to the house. Maybe they did go out the back door, and she got away somehow and try to get back into her home. I mean,
it's
that's
crazy.
yeah.
When
that
you
would be
start
interesting.
to, yeah. Let's carry on. What else you got?
Let's see. There was one other thing that I was going to bring up about it, but I honestly don't even remember. Oh, I remember now. Oh, so here it is. So these drops were put, or not, well, I don't know if they were put, but these drops were found on the sidewalk. Again, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 what look like blood drops in close proximity to each other. Again, it tells me that she was standing here for a period of time. And I believe this is close to where the steps are. And so it's interesting. It is interesting. Hey, there's a kid.
Yeah, she knows where the action is.
Let's see. I'll ask you a couple more, and then I know we're almost 2.5 hours into it. I want to thank you so much for being here with me tonight.
Thank you, Daniel. It's fascinating. So,
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Whatever Wanderer says, imprint could be rolling Xmas tree bag. They have different kinds, and they are foldable.
so I think she agrees it's some type of wheel in a different type of contraption.
It very well could be. When I look at this, let me go back here. The one thing that makes me think so this is the other image that I was showing that I have a different angle of. This is on a edge of a tile where you can see the triangular or the three boom, boom, booms from that. Now, one thing that I noticed is there's a connector right here between these two. And I will say that is consistent with wheel tread. They usually do have that.
Thank you.
Like you'll have the tread, and then there'll be a connector, and then the tread, and then a connector. So, I don't know what it is. I'd be lying if I said. I'd be lying if I tried to tell something. No, you're wrong. It's not that. That
confirmation bias.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what it is. I try to stay open about everything as I possibly can until there's evidence that points in one direction that is not, that it just can't be that anymore. And I feel like we're not going to get that until there's an actual arrest of somebody. We see a criminal complaint, we see probable cause affidavit, and we see the evidence at hand that we'll be able to make those determinations. Until then, I think it's just all a guessing game for the most part. I mean, I think we can make some educated guesses, but
that
still guesses.
Is a transfer print, I assume. That looks man-made. That I don't think nature dripped like that. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And so, well, Monks, I want to say thank you. I don't want to take too much more of your time. I know we've been on here for almost 2.5 hours. Is there anything that you have coming up? Any videos that you're working on right now?
Yeah, I'm actually working on a video right now. It's I feel it's going to be a little bit interesting, and I'm going to put it this way. It's going to be a video where, for the people that like to just listen, which a lot of people are, like listen maybe during bed or something like this, is going to be a video that you're going to have to watch. I'll just preface it that way. Because if you just listen, you're going to miss, I guess, what I'm actually trying to say. Because, of course, I have to speak in a roundabout way, in a sense, but it's something that I saw on X, an image that I needed to prove was real. And in the next video I'm going to do, I was able to prove that it was a real picture. And so once I had that, then I could expand upon it. So
interesting.
It's going to be something it's interesting. I could probably just leave it at that. So
well, I'm intrigued.
If you guys trust me, okay, and for your viewers as well, if you trust me, I won't expand on anything that isn't based on something, right? It's not going to be whatnot. I even told the audience that I'm going to cut off my camera if you bring up aliens at any point. So good on you that you didn't do that.
No, I don't. I keep all the alien stuff separate. But I am intrigued with as your name and your channel indicates, Monk's Intrigued. Very intriguing stuff. I am intrigued. I can't wait for that video to come out. I'll be looking forward to it. Make sure you guys go and sub up to Monk's Intrigued. It's at 54.6 thousand subscribers. Let's get him up to 55,000. That'd be great. Let him know that the Drunk Turkey Show sent you. What a Wonder comes in with porch video at 212 on the way out, and back out front. I mean, it's possible that's what that 212 was, is that he was going around and trying to get up to the front for some reason. I had toyed with that idea that maybe perhaps that's when he disconnected the camera. Actually, at that point, was then because of he needed to change plans and go out the front door. But I don't know if I'm still there anymore. That was my first thought process, because just because the phone or the camera disconnects at 1:48 a.m. doesn't mean he made entry at that point. We don't know the exact time he made entry. And so,
or if he was already in.
That's true. He could have already made entry.
Yeah, there's the case of Nancy's meds. If that is the truth, that she didn't take her 10 p.m. meds, then what prevented her from taking it? That's another can of worms, which I don't know why I brought up. Anyways, yeah, married to the hobby. Go ahead.
Well, that's an interesting point, because I don't know why she wouldn't have taken them. I'm wondering if there was something that was, maybe she consumed a little bit of alcohol or something at her daughter's house. Maybe that prevented her. But that's a good point. Why didn't she take her meds at 10 a.m.? That's
If
a good point.
she didn't take her meds, because that isn't a fact. That was a concern early on in the case.
That's true. That is true. Well, guys, I would appreciate it if you followed my other channel called Married to the Hobby. We have 346 subscribers. We're trying to get to 500. I would really appreciate it if you guys can go up there and sub. We do things like, the last one we went to Pickle Fest out here in San Antonio, Texas. So go check that out.
Was it worth it? Don't tell us. We have to watch the video.
Watching the video will make it worth it. I'll say this. My wife picked up some pickles that were pretty dang good. I'm not going to lie. And so they were pretty dang good, but there was a lot more stuff than just the pickle stuff. So go check that out. I'm actually dropping a video tomorrow on some Pokemon stuff there. So I'd appreciate it if you guys would go and follow and subscribe. That would make me feel good. And so I look forward to having you on again, and probably in the next couple of weeks, if you're willing to come back on after we see some more information. I'm intrigued by your video and looking forward to it, my man. Thank you for coming on.
For inviting me again. Second time's a charm. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it, and maybe some of my people will give you plenty of love. I'm sure I have a great audience. I love them so much. They're funny, and they're very sweet. At least to me. Hopefully they're nice to you.
They are. I've seen the love, and very much so. So thank you guys, Monk's family, for being here as well. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. I'll see you guys for me on Drunk Turkey Show probably tomorrow night. I don't have anything planned yet, but something usually comes up in between time. So until then, guys, we'll see y'all next time. Peace out, y'all.